Kurenai, which is 12 episodes long and made from a light novel. Now, I know that the last review I posted was full of hatred and righteous fury, but I'm not going to do that this time, because frankly, if I picked on this show too much, I would feel like a bully. It's one of those friendly little under-the-radar shows, and watching it was kind of like when you're walking along and happen to find a piece of candy on the ground that's still fully wrapped and edible. It may not brighten your whole day, but it still tastes good and you feel clever for having found it. Now, the show's title comes from the main character's last name, Shinkuro Kurenai, who is your average 17-year-old high school student with the not-average job of working for the Yakuza, Japanese mafia. Specifically, his job is that of a quote-unquote dispute mediator, which, like a lot of mafia stuff, is a polite way of saying something very violent. What it means is that when somebody is having a business argument with somebody else, if somebody goes to Shinkuro's boss and hires them, Shinkuro gets to go and threaten then beat the crap out of somebody else. So he's vaguely like a bouncer, which totally doesn't suit his personality because he's one of those symbolic, soft-spoken nice guys who never causes trouble and once again dons the Boku stamp upon his brow. He also has this weird arm blade horn thing that makes him look like he's cosplaying Chip Zanoff, but I'll come back to that later. So what's a goody-goody like Shinkuro doing in the mafia? Well, his parents both died in some kind of big accident back when he was little, and after that his entire orphanage got taken hostage by some generic thugs, during which he was rescued by his now boss and idol, Benika-sama, who is this almost comically maternal character who is very easy to forget that she's a mob boss and she spends so much time doting on her employees. There's even a scene where she's having this parental conversation on the phone with them while torturing some guy, which I'm still not sure is funny or not. However, Benika's not the focus here, because the main female character and basis for the show is that Shinkuro's big assignment is to take care of this little 7-year-old girl, Murasaki Kuhoen, who is the child of an aristocratic family that has some serious internal problems, and for some reason keeps her locked up in this room called the Inner Sanctum. But after being extracted from that place by Benika, is handed over to Shinkuro to raise for an indefinite amount of time, because high school mob employees with no parents who live alone just don't have enough to worry about. However, Murasaki is a cute kid, and the point is that she and Shinkuro make this kind of Prince and the Pauper odd couple. And while she is a little ridiculously articulate for a 7-year-old, the character of the little girl is well portrayed and believable, unlike a lot of little kids in anime who I find to be annoying tokens so cute and squeaky they might as well be bath toys. Other characters include Ginko, who is Shinkuro's classmate and childhood friend who is in the same orphanage as him and spends her time on the internet getting information for him. She also seems to have a crush on him, though would never actually do anything about it, and is jealous of Shinkuro's other classmate, Yuno, who is the daughter of the guy who owns the dojo Shinkuro trains at, also likes him, and while would also never say it, expresses it by constantly hanging all over him like a desperate leech. There's also Shinkuro's apartment neighbors, Tamaki, the perverted flake, and Yamie, the sarcastic goth lady, who both regularly pester Shinkuro, eat his food, and mess with Murasaki's impressionable little mind, but in a friendly way. Oh yeah, there's also Yayoi, who is one of Benika's other subordinates who spends the show keeping an eye on Shinkuro because she doesn't think he can do the job and being depressed because she doesn't have a boyfriend. And that's pretty much everyone, really. Now, for most of the show, the storyline is very tame and cute, mostly revolving around the growing relationship between Shinkuro and Murasaki and how he's teaching her about the outside world and how not to be a spoiled brat. So a lot of the episodes are made of heartwarming stories and marshmallow fluff. And while I know some people won't like the show because of that, I found it to be pleasantly enjoyable and well done for what it is, though I suppose I'm a bit biased. See, I have this little sister who's much younger than me, and when I watch the show I can't help but be reminded of her and myself. I still remember when I heard her say, without provocation, that the English voices on Naruto sound dumb. I was so proud. Anywho, the show does have a few serious parts, and the last few episodes when things really start happening are actually pretty interesting. Plus, when you finally find out why Murasaki was in the Inner Sanctum the whole time, you realize that there are some villains involved here and that you do not like them. Now, back to the whole arm blade thing. This was actually the only thing that bugged me about the show, because even though it's technically there, it gets extremely little attention and is the only supernatural thing in the whole show. Even the climax at the end with it is only a few seconds long, so to me it just felt kind of crowbarred in and wasn't really necessary to the story at all. Well, okay, it wasn't the only supernatural thing in the show. I mean, you see that? That's two women martial arts fighting each other while both wearing high heels. There's also the part where Benika is driving a small car very fast through a forest in several inches of snow and never hits anything. Do you have any idea how hard that would be? Almost as hard as doing martial arts in high heels. I'm going to go off on a little rant here because I've had this on my chest for a long time. Okay, all of you males who draw comic books and character artwork really need to stop dressing up your females into these asinine sexist costumes that don't even make a shred of sense. I don't care if Tsunade and her genjutsu teats is a ninja. You cannot do kung fu fighting while wearing 5-inch stilettos. I mean, you can barely even walk in those things, much less do battle without falling down and getting stabbed in the face. And for the love of God, would you stop making your strong female warriors look like cheap hookers? Especially when those characters are supposed to be wearing armor, okay? A chainmail bikini does not count as protection. If you honestly expect to put on an outfit that only covers approximately 1/12 of your young, supple flesh and leaves every single one of your precious vital organs exposed and go off into some bloody, raging battlefield, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get killed, all right? You will die, mark my words. Unless your plan is to nosebleed everyone to death, but frankly nobody's that sexy, not even Rukia. Just because it's made out of metal does not mean it counts as competent armor. Even in a fantasy setting, there is such a thing as form-following function. There's also such a thing as common bleeping sense. I don't care how desperate and lonely you all are. I guarantee you this is part of the reason why. So quit touching yourselves long enough to grow up and knock it off, you dang nabbed whipper-snappers. All right, sorry about that, but God, I feel so much better now. Where the hell was I? Kure-Nai. Let's see. The production values are mild but decent, with the animation having a few surprising moments of quality throughout the show. The voice actors aren't really given much in the script to display their full ability, but there are a few good spots, and everyone in the show has been well casted to their character, which is about the most you can ask for in something like this. The music mostly consists of a batch of peaceful piano tunes that don't really stand out at all, but nicely complement the friendly mood and happy little tone of the show. Now, there is a manga version of Kurenai besides the original light novel, but unlike the usual scenario where the anime is made after the manga, in this case the manga came after the anime. It's written by a different person than the original author, and is only based off the show. It also appears to be more shonen-y too, since I did graze through a few chapters and saw that it started off with the phrase, "I won't lose to a guy like this." Anyway, in the end I found Kurenai to be a pleasant little show. It's quiet and harmless and doesn't really raise any expectations, but because of that it's very difficult to be disappointed in it. And the thing about Kurenai is that, if you squint, it's actually a harem show. I mean, look, a wishy-washy nice guy main character surrounded by a squadron of females, at least 3 of whom want him. The big difference here is that unlike most of those shows, this one has a touch of class and a large amount of restraint. It's just a cute, feel-good show, and even though it's about a guy and a little girl, there isn't any of the sick pedo crap that seems to plague so much anime. The ending is rather bittersweet, but still very touching, and I have to admit, after watching the show, I felt warm and fuzzy inside. So if you're an action head or anything like that, you probably won't care, and if you skip this show, you admittedly aren't really missing that much. But if you've got a soft spot anywhere on you, then there's a very good chance you'll be glad you took the time to watch it. Thank you, and good night.